about vertical curves, which I asked you guys to try. So if anyone has tried that question, please share it with the class so we can discuss. The question was very simple. This was the question. Yes, anyone who wants to share it? No one? Who has tried it? Anybody who tried it? I'll count to 5. There's no one. I'll just move forward. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. To your benefit, it was a very simple question. So I hope even if you didn't try it before, you can still try it later and you will not find any difficulties. Okay, so today we will discuss the cross-sectional elements of the highway. So cross-section is cut across the width of the road. It's 90 degree across the length, like 90 degree from the length of the road and from one side of the road to the other side of the road. So you can see a typical cross-section picture on the slide. So in the cross-section, elements which are normally included, they are travel lane, shoulder, side slope, curves, medians and barriers, guardrails and drainage channels. So you can see the travel lane here, you can see the shoulder here. This is what we call as a side slope. Okay, so this comes after the shoulder. You can see the drainage channel here. The curb is referring to the sidewalk or the curb which you make for the median. Okay, it's not shown here, obviously just a typical picture. I cannot show each and everything. So that is a curb, okay, which is not shown here. And we'll discuss each of these things in detail. So when you are going for construction, you need to cut the cross section after every station or at every station along the highway. At every station along the highway. So station means how many feet? A station means how many feet?
100 feet, Doctor.
100 feet. Good. 100 feet or 30 meters, or wherever you are having a change in the cross section, there at that place you can also cut a cross section. So let us discuss the elements of the cross section, starting from travel lanes, which are also called the pavement. So when you are designing the pavement, this is mainly the part you are designing, basically the pavement for the travel lane. Okay, so when we say this surface is paved, okay, so paved means what? That it has a smooth and solid surface. This is what we mean by paved. Okay, so obviously travel lanes are supposed to be paved, they are supposed to have a smooth and solid surface, and the travel lanes are the surfaces on which vehicles will operate. Okay, these are designed for the normal operations of the vehicle. The width of the travel lane, the optimum width of the travel lane is 12 feet or 3.6 meters. Optimum. Okay, if you go below this value, then it has been observed that the speeds tend to be narrower and more chances of accidents. If you go above this value, then the increase in speed and the decrease in chance of accidents are not significant. Okay, so this is why 12 feet is considered to be an optimum value. You will find highways in Bahrain, maybe the highway which you have chosen for that highway may have a lane width of more than 12 feet or 3.6 meters. Okay, so don't get worried It's just an optimum value which has been recommended. Okay. So when you go for less than 12 feet, as I said, reduction in speed and more chance of accidents have been observed. Narrow lanes less than 12 feet are normally given on low volume, low speed roads where the space is restricted. So for example, in your around your house, you may see, or in the commercial areas, you may see the streets are very narrow. Okay, why they are narrow? Because they are designed for there is low volume on those roads and the space is restricted. Both streets are populated or occupied. The lanes must have a cross slope as well. Slope, not talking about the gradient now, talking about.
Doctor, I cannot hear you clearly.
What is the purpose of having?
Yeah, doctor, your voice is cracking.
Is it there now?
It's all right, but maybe if you turn off the video, it will be better.
What about now?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Is it better?
Yes, doctor.
Doctor, again cracking.
What I was saying.
Yeah, sorry to interrupt you, doctor. It's cracking again.
I didn't say anything yet.
Oh, okay. Continue, doctor.
So the cross slope, the travel lane are supposed to have cross slopes. Travel lanes are supposed to cross slope, the slope or width of the road. If I'm not, okay, there is a slope along the width of the road. The cross slope of the lane is to provide. This is the which are like a horizontal line. They will always have some sort of a downward cross slope. This is mainly for, okay, so movement sooner and faster. The drainage across the pavement, we provide cross slopes.
Doctor, we still can't hear you clearly. It's still cracking.
The cross slope is a super elevation. Sorry. Hello.
Hello, doctor. Yes, it's cracking a little bit.
Okay, I was saying that another reason for providing the cross slope is the super elevation. We have already discussed the concept of super elevation earlier. That super elevation is provided on the curve, so the the car can come up easily and it facilitates it pushes the driver towards the curve. Okay, so you have already seen super elevation earlier. Okay, so obviously super elevation is not provided everywhere, but the cross slope is provided on all locations wherever you are giving the travel lane. Travel lane always has a cross slope. Okay, now for again to the topic of cross slope of the travel lane. High type pavements can range from 1.5 to 2%. For low type pavements, it can range from 2 to 6%. Okay, now what is the meaning of high type? I used this word earlier as well. High type roads meaning they are designed for high speeds and high volumes. Okay, and the surface of those roads are made up of better materials. The asphalt mix which is used in high type pavements is better. So there are less chances that the water will seep into the surface. Okay, so that's why, and obviously we are providing it for high speed. So even if the water drains, you are providing them the high type pavements for high speed. So to maintain high speed slope, the cross slope should smoother. That's why for high type pavements the range of cross slope is flatter. Okay, and also because of the mix design which we are using for the, we can manage because less chances, because of the better design of the asphalt mix of the surface, there are less chances that the water will seep into the surface. So we can maintain a smoother or a flatter slope as well, a cross slope. On low type pavements, we are designing it for low speed and low volume. So we can provide a steeper slope, so you can see the range is higher. And secondly, for low type pavements, the material used for the surface, the asphalt mix used for the surface is not good, is not better. So there are more chances that water will seep into the surface. Okay, so that's why we provide higher cross slopes. The usual practice of providing cross slope is to have the drainage on both sides of the road. So you can see it in this picture. We can have a drainage channel on this side. We can have a drainage channel on this side, and you can see that the lanes are going downwards, or they are draining the water
Doctor,
on
we cannot
both
see
sides
the
of the road.
picture.
Cannot see the picture. You cannot see the picture at all. You can see half of it.
I don't know about the others, but actually I'm seeing the writing.
the
You
screen
didn't
is
show us a
stopped.
picture.
Sorry.
The screen is stopped at the travel lanes and pavement. It didn't shift after it.
What about now?
Yeah, we can see it.
Okay, so I was saying that you have a channel on this side, you have a drainage channel on this side, and the drainage is on both sides of the road. This is considered to be faster and efficient. Okay, so whatever you are providing for, it can be a ditch, it can be a culvert, it can be a pipe. So it is provided on both sides, so the drainage is faster and easier. Okay, so this is the normal design. Okay, if the amount of water you are expecting on the pavement is low, so for example, a country like Bahrain, you have like the sun on most parts, most of the year, and the rainfall is very low. Okay, in that case, you may keep the sides of the road with loose sand, provided that the amount of water you are expecting, that sand has enough capacity to absorb that water. Okay, then you can design the cross slope even without the drainage channel or drainage pipe the side of the road. Okay, so this is also possible, but provided that the rainfall which you are expecting is just that much which can be absorbed by the loose material of the sand on the ground on the side of the road. Okay, another practice is that the inside lanes of the road have have lower slope as compared to the outside lanes of the road. So you can see the inside lane has a slope of 1.5%. Then there's a difference of increase of 0.5%. And there's a lane after that, then you have the increase of 0.5%. So if there was a third lane, the third lane will have a cross slope of 2.5%, and so on and so forth. So the cross slopes are usually increased by increment of 0.5% when you are going from inside to outside lane. Okay, and because the speed on the outside lanes is usually slow, and the inside lane speed drivers usually go higher in the inside lanes. And secondly, as the water is drained off the lanes, it becomes faster. Okay, as you are going towards the outside edge of the road, the drainage of the water becomes faster. Okay, so this is a reason that we increase the cross slope of the lanes. If you are providing super elevation, the value of super elevation is usually higher than the normal slope of the road. The value of super elevation is usually higher than the normal slope of the road. So then you don't have to worry about increasing 0.5% and doing these things. Okay, just provide the normal super elevation, and this is enough for the drainage as well. Secondly, let me show you the super elevation. So when you provide the super elevation, it is the whole surface is tilting towards the inside of the curve. The whole surface is tilting towards the inside of the curve. So obviously the drainage channel should be here. Then drainage cannot be on both sides because the slope is towards the inside of the road.
Can you please repeat what you said?
Okay, so I'm saying if the road has super elevation, a curve already has super elevation value enough for the drainage, then you don't have to change the cross slope the lane 5%.
So I don't know about the others, but
means,
your sound for me is cracking.
Yeah, for us also, lagging too much.
Is it better like this? Okay. So I was saying that if the road has super elevation, which is along the curve, then the value of the super elevation is enough for the drainage. And since the lanes which have super elevation are tilting towards the inside of the curve, then the drainage channel should also be on the inside of the curve. Okay, then you should not have drainage channels, or you do not need drainage channels on both sides of the curve, because the road is only sloped towards the inside of the curve. Okay, then moving on to the second element, which is the shoulder. A shoulder is that portion of which is contiguous. Okay, contiguous means parallel. Contiguous means parallel. Okay, so it's a space of the road which is for stopped vehicles. If the vehicle has to be stopped for some reason, it can be stopped on the shoulder. For emergency use, if there is an vehicle that can use a shoulder, for example, ambulance or fire truck or something. In our case, we feel that we are driving an ambulance, right? We are stuck on a traffic jam, or stuck in congestion, or emergency use means used by the emergency vehicles. Okay, fire trucks and ambulances and so on, they can use the shoulder. They are allowed to use the shoulder. Another use of providing a shoulder is to provide lateral support. Support means sides. Okay. So the pavement, the road surface, does not have beams and columns, right? So the layers of the road need to be supported on the sides with a side slope. They need to have some stabilized surface so that they do not fall under the load of traffic. So the layers of the road, I think you may have learned it in the highway engineering course, subbase, base, and surface. These layers are supported on the sides with the shoulder. Okay, so they are part of the road structure, and they are supported on the sides, or they can be supported on the sides with a shoulder. So shoulder width ranges from 2 to 12 feet, and they are usually equal or less than the travel lane. Shoulders are made up of stabilized materials, meaning solid surfaces. You cannot leave the shoulder with a loose sand or loose ground surface. Okay, they can be fully paved with an asphalt surface like the travel lane, or they can be compacted or made up of grass. So if you remember in the last chapter, we did an example where the shoulder was made up of grass and we used different coefficients of friction to solve that example. So if you are making the shoulder with a different type of material, for example, the road is made up of asphalt and the shoulder is made up of, let's say, a stone surface, then you have to make sure that the joint between the pavement, the travel lane and the shoulder is proper. Okay, there is proper joint between the travel lane and the shoulder. There is no space between them, because otherwise then you will have vegetation and water penetrating into the joint and so on and so forth. So to avoid that, we should have a proper joint between the travel lane and the shoulder, especially when they are made up of different materials. For high-speed roads, for example, rural highways, urban freeways, shoulders are considered necessary. Why? Because on high-speed roads, if a vehicle stops, it will stop, or it will disturb the other drivers as well. The other drivers, obviously, how they will pass if the vehicle is stopped on the travel lane, and then we have the safety point of view as well. If the vehicle is stopped on the travel lane, other vehicles are coming at high speed, more chances of accidents and more chances of severe accidents. Okay, you can use lower widths of shoulder. For example, the most commonly applied width of a shoulder is 10 feet. Shoulders are normally, on most of the highways, shoulders are kept as 10 feet. Why? Because the normal width of the car is 8 feet. The normal width of the car is 8 feet. So if the car is stopped on the shoulder, then you still have a 2 feet clearance between the car and the travel lane. So this is how they have come up with the common value of 10 feet. But you can provide a width less than 10 feet, even up to 2 feet. If you are providing it for low speed highways, for low type highways, and there are space restrictions. So you must have seen, and you must have done it as well, in local streets. For example, in front of your house, or maybe in front of a cold store, you may have parked your vehicle directly in front of the gate, where there is not much space between the gate and the lane of the road. Because you know, or you must have done it yourself, that the speed is very low and the volume is not so high. So even if a vehicle comes and my vehicle is occupying part of the road, that other driver can easily manage from the other lane or from the other side of the road. Okay, he is not coming at high speed. There are not many vehicles on the street. So even if some part of the travel lane is occupied by a vehicle, other drivers can still manage. So on narrow roads which have a space limitation, low speed, low volume, you may see the shoulders are very narrow as well. What are the functions of a shoulder? A shoulder is, the main function is the first point, which is to provide refuge for stalled or temporary stopped vehicles. If you want to stop your vehicle, stop it on the shoulder. The other benefit of having a shoulder is to provide a buffer. Now, can someone tell me what is the meaning of the word buffer? What do we mean by buffer? Just the meaning of the word. Buffer means what? No. Safe area, yes. Safe area, or a separation. Okay, safe area or a separation. Okay, so a shoulder. So if you are on the lane, this is the lane. You have the shoulder, and then you have maybe across a sidewalk or a building or a tree or something on the side of the road. So your car went out of control and it stopped on the shoulder. Still, you are safe, others are safe from your car. Okay, if there was no shoulder, you might have gone on and hit the person on the sidewalk, or you might have gone on and hit something on the side of the road, a wall or a pole or something. So shoulder provide you a buffer area and provide a separation between the car and the property and people on the side of the road. Okay, so it provides that clear area where you can recover from the accident. You had an accident, you got hit, the car went out of control, you can stop on the shoulder without causing any more damage. Shoulder is providing an empty area on the side of the road, so it gives the driver more ease and confidence. When you see the road is wide and you have empty area, clear area on the side of the road, you become more convenient, you become more confident and comfortable. Okay, for the horizontal curves, so for example, if this road is going on the horizontal curve, so we have discussed in the previous lecture that we need some clear space on the side of the road for the side distance. So on the shoulder, obviously there will be no object. So shoulder is part of the clear area or the clearance which you have from the roadside obstruction. We call it the M value. So the shoulder is part of the M value or the part of the horizontal sight line offset. Okay, so shoulder increases the clear area which you have on the side of the road, increases the sight distance from the roadside obstruction. It improves the capacity and operation on the highways. When you don't have, when you have shoulders, so more clearance on the side, people go at higher speeds, better flows and better operation. It also provides space for operation and maintenance equipment. You'd want to do some operation and maintenance on the road. You need some equipment, mixers, you need some material. So you can store the material and the equipment on the shoulder. Or the other way around, the lane is closed because of maintenance and maintenance activity. You can open the shoulder as an extra lane. So you had 2 lanes before the maintenance operation. During the maintenance operation, you can maintain the 2 lanes by assigning the shoulder as an extra lane. Okay. Countries where you have regular snowfall, it happens in many parts, in some parts of Pakistan. So you remove the snow and you can store it on the side, on the shoulder. You can store it on the side, on the shoulder, until the vehicle comes and picks it up. Okay, because the snow has to be removed again and again, and the vehicle cannot come and pick it for so many, with so much frequency. So you can store the snow on the side of the road, remove it from the side, and store it on the shoulder till the vehicle comes and picks it up. It provides lateral clearance for the signs and guardrails and for any object which you have on the side of the road. So there is a clearance between the lane and any object which you have on the side of the road. Okay. It improves the drainage. The side slope of the, the cross slope of the shoulder is more as compared to the travel lane. So the drainage across the shoulder is faster. And as I said earlier, it provides a side support for the structure of the road as well. These are the recommended values for cross slope of the shoulder. They are usually more than the travel lane, especially if the shoulder is made up of any other material which is not asphalt. So for bituminous, this is same as a travel lane, a low type pavement. But if you are using gravel or stone or turf meaning grass, turf means grass. So if you are using grass shoulder or stone shoulder, then you may increase the value of the side slope because they have more chances of seepage of water for absorbing water. So to enhance the drainage, we can increase the side slope, the cross slope, not the side slope, cross slope. Then side slope for cuts and embankments. So for example, this is your ground level. Okay, and this is your road level. Or so this is what we call as a cut. Okay, and this is what we call as the side slope of the cut. Okay, and let's say the ground level is here. Okay, and this is the road level. So road level is above the ground level. Okay, so this is what we call, this part is what we call as the embankment. And then this will be the side slope of the embankment. So cut is road level is low, ground level is high. Okay, and the side slope between the road level and the ground level will be the side slope of the cut. If the road level is higher, ground level is lower, then you will have an embankment. and the slope between the road and the ground level will be the side slope of the embankment. The main function of the side slope is stability. Without the side slope, if you make it vertical, the road level or the road surface will not be stable. It will move away with under the load of traffic. Okay. In areas, for example, in urban areas where the side slope is not, where the space is not available for the side slope, for giving the side slope, I have to give this space. If the space is not available for the side slope, then we put a retaining wall on the side of the road, like this. So it's a vertical wall, but it is made up of reinforced concrete. Okay, so where you have some loose material on the side of the road which may fall on the road and you want to protect the road surface, but you do not have enough space for a side slope or natural side slope, then you can provide a retaining wall which is made up of reinforced concrete. Okay, if you have space for a natural side slope, then these are the recommended values. Now keep one thing in mind, side slope is not for the regular operation of vehicles. Side slope is not for the regular operation of vehicles. Vehicles are not supposed to be on the side slope. Okay. So if you want to use the side slope for maintenance equipment, storing maintenance equipment or moving equipment, then you may provide a side slope of 3:1. 3:1 means what? 3 horizontal, 1 vertical. 3 horizontal distance, 1 vertical change. Okay. So if you want to use a side slope for maintenance equipment, a side slope of 3:1 can be used. If you want to make it safe for accident, okay, then you may use a side slope of 4:1. Okay, so for example, you feel that in case of an accident, a vehicle may come onto the side slope. So if the side slope is steep, very steep, then there are chances that the vehicle will directly fall onto the side slope, like it will roll over. Okay, it will roll over on the side slope. So to avoid that an out of control vehicle does not roll over the side slope, you may go for a side slope of 4:1. Okay, a maximum side slope of 4:1. Okay, if you are providing a steep slope, for example, 4:1 cannot be provided, we do not have enough space or something, then provide a steeper side slope, what, with a barrier. Put a barrier here. So even if the vehicle is out of control, it has an accident, it will not go onto the side slope. Okay, so provide a barrier if you are using a steep side slope. If you are growing grass on the side slope, then you may provide a side slope of 2:1. If you are providing it for structural stability, then we prefer a side slope of 6:1. Okay, now one question here. Which value is steeper, 2:1 or 6:1?
I guess Doctor 2:1.
2:1 is what? Steeper or flatter?
Steeper, Doctor. The 6:1 is flatter.
6:1 is flatter. Okay, no difference of opinion. Mohammed is also saying the same thing. Yes, both are correct. 2:1 is steeper as compared to 6:1 because 6 or 2 means horizontal, 1 means vertical. So when I have more horizontal distance and 1 vertical distance, it is smoother. So both of you are correct. Well done. Moving on. So we are providing a flatter slope for structural stability, and then as you go steeper, then you may have to think about more things for providing structural stability. Okay, these are the recommended values of side slope. Okay, and you can see they depend upon the height of cut or fill and the type of terrain. The height of cut or fill or type of terrain. Height of cut or fill means what? The difference between the road elevation and the natural ground elevation. This, the difference between these two heights. There's a height of cut or fill. So you can see as the height is increasing, the slope is becoming steeper. The slope is becoming steeper. Why? To control the space requirements. Okay, so with the steeper slope, you require less space to fill the difference in elevation. Okay, so if the difference in elevation is higher, so we provide a steeper slope so that we can restrict the space of the side slope, because this space is restricted basically. So whenever there's a big, there's more difference in elevation of ground and the road, you make it with a steeper slope so that you can cover it with less space. Okay, and you can, if you go from one column to the other, you can see when I go from level to steep terrain, and I go from level to steep terrain, the side slope again is increasing. Why? We discussed it earlier at the start of this chapter, to conform to the topography. A steeper side slope is better in steep grounds. Where the ground is naturally steep, then you provide for a steeper side slope to conform the topography, help with the drainage, and so on and so forth. Now you can see some values are given with a static sign. A static means what? A static means that these side slopes should be, these values should be avoided if the soil is erodible, okay, or more susceptible to eroding. What do we mean by eroding? Eroding is a removal of loose material. Removal of loose material because of the action of water or wind. So there are materials which are susceptible to the action of wind and water as compared to other materials. For example, stone. So if you pour water on the stone, what will happen? Nothing. Or if you pour, or there is heavy wind, so the stone will not be moved because of wind, okay, or a little bit of water, okay. But if you have loose sand, then there are more chances that it will move, and it will be removed faster with heavy wind or with the action of water. So if the materials on the side slope, which you are using on the side slope, is susceptible to eroding, it is made up of loose fine material, then you should avoid providing steep side slopes, okay, without any support. Then we have the guardrail. The main function of the guardrail is to stop the vehicles from going from one side to the other. The main function of the guardrail is to stop the vehicle from going to the road to the other side, whatever is on the other side. So for example, if I'm using the guardrail on the side of the road, then my purpose is to avoid the vehicle on the road to go towards the side. Now what can be on the side of the road? The side of the road may have objects, for example, trees, drainage culverts, lighting poles, signposts. So if the vehicle, because of an accident or because of the inattention of the driver, goes off the road and there is no guardrail, there is no barrier, it will go and hit these objects, and these objects may fall on the vehicle or someone else. Okay, so you will cause a greater damage. Okay, or like I said in the previous case, the vehicle may go onto a side slope, a steep side slope. So if you are providing a steep side slope, which is steeper than 4:1, then you should provide it with a guardrail, because the vehicle will fall over the side slope. Okay. Then you can provide a guardrail on the median as well. Now, what is the purpose of giving a guardrail on the median? The purpose is a vehicle out of control or having an accident does not go to the other side of traffic, the other direction of traffic. Okay, because again it will hit other vehicles and cause a disruption in the other side as well. Now keep in mind, we are talking about preventing the vehicles which are out of control or which had an accident. We are not talking about ourselves. Okay, what we do, I'm going to the office, oh, there's too much congestion on the road, let me turn back. Okay, now the U-turn is 100 meters away. Why don't I go over the median and turn back to my home? No, I'm not talking about providing a guardrail for these types of drivers. We are talking about providing guardrail for drivers who may go over the median because of an accident, because of inintention. Okay, unintentionally. Okay, so the main function of a guardrail is to absorb, like I said, the main function is it should avoid getting the drivers to going to the other side of the road or going out of their side of the road. Okay, so the guardrail should be designed in a way that it can absorb the impact of the vehicle by causing it less damage. So it will take the impact of the vehicle and it will deflect the vehicle to a safe place. It will deflect the vehicle to a safe place. Let me show you a video to highlight this point. So you can see a guardrail in this video, which is made up of soft fiberglass material, and there are rollers installed within the guardrail. Okay, so because of the fiberglass, because of the soft material, you can see when the vehicle hits the guardrail is absorbing the impact, it is bending itself, and the vehicle is not getting too much damage. And because of the rollers, it is deflected back towards the road. It is deflected back towards the road. So these are the main things you have to keep in mind while you are designing the guardrail. If you are designing the guardrail for a median, okay, like I said, we are talking about guardrail for a median to avoid vehicles out of control to getting onto the other side. Okay, so if you have a wide median, a median which is 20 feet or wider, and it does not have any dangerous objects on itself. For example, what are the dangerous objects on the median? Trees, culverts, lighting posts, signposts. So if these objects are not on the median itself is clear and it is wide, then you can provide a median without the guardrail. Because even if there is an accident, there are chances that the driver has enough opportunity to stop on the median and stop himself going to the other side. Okay, he may get the control of the vehicle back because he has so much space. He has so much space that is clear. The median itself is clear and it is wide. So there is space available for the driver to control the vehicle himself before going to the other side. The vehicle may stop before going to the other side within the space of the median. Okay, but if you have narrow median, then guardrail is better because to avoid accidents encroaching to the other side. These are different types of guardrails made up of different materials. So this one steel, this one concrete, this one again is steel, this one can be steel or wood, and this one is wood. Okay, so you can see the names here. W section, concrete, obviously. Blocked out W section, we have box beam, blocked out W section with wood. Okay, so the name is given according to the shape. So you can see this is a W, a horizontal W. Okay, so this is made up of steel. Then you can see boxed out W. So you have a box in the middle, and then you have the W section. Same thing here with the wood as well. And this is just a box, a rectangle or a square. Okay, so according to the name. Concrete barriers, very common on bridges. If you are traveling on any bridge in Bahrain, you will see concrete guardrails or barriers. W and these steel barriers are very common on high-speed roads. Go to Sheikh Khalifa bin Salman Highway, Sheikh Salman Highway. The sides of the road normally have the steel barriers. Wooden barriers are used mainly for low-speed roads. Okay, so if you are traveling on Bahrain, maybe you can see these barriers or these guardrails. Okay. How do I decide about the design? Which type of design of barrier should I go for? It depends upon the strength you need at the time of impact and the flexibility you need. The design of the barrier depends upon the strength and the stability you need at the time of impact. So when the vehicle hits the guardrail, how much impact and flexibility you need? They are inversely proportional. The more flexible design, for example, steel box beam is very flexible. Okay, a box beam is very flexible. So when a vehicle hits a steel box beam, the barrier, the guardrail will bend like this, and the vehicle will slightly move forward, but it will cause less damage to the car. Okay, so it has less impact, less strength, more flexibility, so it will cause less damage to the car, but it will need some extra space on the side for bending. It will need some extra space on the side for bending and allowing the car to move forward. But if you are using a concrete barrier, like I said, they are used for bridges. If you see if the car hits a concrete barrier, it has more strength and zero flexibility. So when the car hits a concrete barrier, the car will stop dead. but it will cause more damage to the vehicle and the driver. A concrete barrier will cause more damage, but you don't need any extra space on the side. Okay, so it will stop the car immediately without any extra space or movement on the side, but it will cause more damage to the car. So this is how, these are the two things you have to keep in mind when you are selecting the design. Another important aspect is when the end of the guardrail, okay, so obviously the guardrail will start from somewhere, right? Okay, now if I just keep the guardrail like this, okay, then a driver, for example, let's say this is the guardrail, and let's say this plate is not here, this thing is not here. What will happen? Let's say I'm a driver, I'm driving here, but because of an accident or because of not paying attention, my car goes towards this side. What will happen? I will go and directly hit the end of the guardrail front on. This is very dangerous. If you want to see a demonstration, go and see any part of Final Destination. There's a series of movies where, I don't know, for some reason the drivers keeps getting hitting on the face with something. Okay, like after every 10 minutes, there's a driver which is getting hit by something on the face. Okay, I don't know how they came up with this idea, but anyways, this can happen with the end of the guardrail. This can happen with the end of a guardrail. So the end of the guardrail must not be left blunt or unprotected. You need to protect the end of the guardrail wherever it is ending. So you can see protection here with a plate. This is a hard protection, but it will make sure that the end of the guardrail does not penetrate into the vehicle. Okay, then we have impact attenuating device. This is what we call as impact attenuating device. This is the name here. So these are drums in which you have water or sand. So when the car hits it, again, you have the guardrail here, and the end of the guardrail is protected by these drums. So if the car goes towards the end of the guardrail, it will hit the drums. Obviously, drums will not cause the same damage as the end of the guardrail. Okay. In some cases, in many cases in Bahrain, especially at the ramps, you will see the guardrail, the end of the guardrail is buried into the ground. So we have a guardrail and the end is buried into the ground. So it is going into the ground. So there is no loose end on top of the ground. Okay, this is another way of saving the driver. Okay, another important point is you have a guardrail which is going towards the bridge. So you may have a different material for the guardrail on the ground, and obviously for the bridge we use concrete barriers, concrete guardrails. So there will be a connection. You need to provide a connection between the guardrail of the road and of the bridge. Okay, so this connection must be proper, without any space, without any without any intervals, without any breakage. Okay, so you should have a continuous guardrail from the road to the bridge with proper connection. Okay, the guardrail must be anchored into one another. They must be joined into one another properly so that the drivers do not get confused and there is no space where the driver can be damaged. Okay, I stop. Sorry for the problems with the voice. It was beyond my control. I was using the same system and same PC for the previous section. They did not complain. Anyways, you can listen to the recording, and hopefully if you have any questions, please go ahead, ask me any questions, any problems, any queries, any suggestions, anything.
Doctor, can you please re-explain the relation between the natural ground level and the side slope?
Side slope is the connection between the natural ground level and the road surface. If you want to understand it simply, so you have the ground level on the side of the road and you have the road surface. Okay, so they must be connected with a sloping surface, and that sloping surface is known as a side slope. Okay, so let me go back to the slide here. So you see this picture, so you have the ground surface and you have the road surface. Okay, you need to connect them with a sloping mechanism. Okay, so that sloping mechanism is known as a side slope. Okay, How do you connect the side slope? How do you connect the ground with the road surface? You connect it with the sloping layer. So that sloping layer is the side slope. Okay, is it clear? Or should I
Yeah.
explain
Okay.
it?
Thank you.
So if the ground surface is above the road, then that sloping surface is called as embankment, and the ground surface is if the ground surface is above the road, we call it the cut, and the ground surface below the road, we call it the embankment. Any other questions, queries, suggestions? Any problems?
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for participating. Thanks for listening. And sorry for that issue. I can only hope. I don't know how it happened. I can only hope that it will not happen again. So thank you for participating. Yeah, you're welcome. All of you are welcome. Have a nice weekend. See you guys on Sunday, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum.